Okay, cool, man.
Drinking with Authors may contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Drinking with Authors. I'm your host, Nick Savage, author of many books, but that's not why we're here. We're here because we have a sponsor, and they are Four Horsemen Publications. So check them out at fourhorsemenpublications.com. Joining us today, we have author of books such as 944 Hidalgo and Jove, which comes out June 30th. Two very different books. One's going to be your sci-fi space exploration, which is 944 Hidalgo. And then you're going to have a spy thriller named Jove. And we're going to talk about all these. I'm not going to tell you about them because I didn't write them. I don't know much about them. But Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey.
And first, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so it's Asahi, Japanese beer, kind of the best one in a bottle form, I think. Sometimes drink it in pubs, but I'm more of a kind of Guinness man in pubs.
I know we talked about the Guinness, and I'm drinking Guinness out of a bottle today, which is a big no-no overseas.
No, you can't drink it out. You can't drink it just about out of a can with a little, the one with the thing in it gives you the head. But yeah, no, nobody drinks it out of a bottle. But take what you can get. Right?
Just anybody you show this to, just be like, he's American. He doesn't know better. He doesn't know better. But let's talk about Jove because that's coming out.
Yeah,
June 30th. Tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. It's a spy thriller. I wrote it during COVID. Actually, it was like 2021. I had written the previous book, the sci-fi one. So it's been a long time coming. But I kind of got this idea for writing a spy thriller. I love John le Carre. I love those guys, and also sort of detective books. So like the Wallander series, P.D. James, Agatha Christie. So I read all of those again, and I read all the spy novels I could, and kind of the factual stuff, right? So to just learn about spycraft, tradecraft, and all of that. And I thought, as we all were doing during COVID, when I was sitting around, my job is a producer in kind of corporates and commercial stuff, and that wasn't happening. So it was in January 2021, and I said, okay, let's do this. I'm going to set myself a time scale. So I set myself a month, and a month. And I wrote 2,500 words a day for a month. And I got 75,000 words, and then I put it aside for 2 weeks and spent about, I don't know, a week or two rewriting, and then I was finished, and I sent it out, and nobody wanted it. So and the same with the sci-fi book. It was a hard time for publishing, and so I left it. I put it aside. I got back on my regular day job and stuff, and then a couple of years ago, I kind of looked at both of them again, and I did some rewrites on both of them. And with Jove, I just kind of tried to make the story work a little bit more. I didn't do an awful lot of work, but after I got the first book published, and it was in the system on the go, I kind of followed up with the same publisher, Collective Inc., and they took a look at the second book and said, yeah, we're going to publish that as well. So that's where it went, and it's I've now written a sequel to Jove called Off-Bet Spies, which is about a whole bunch of sleeper agents in Europe and all that kind of stuff. So it takes the same characters. So Jove is about a kind of ex-MI5 guy in his sort of late 40s who's sort of pulled back into investigating his daughter's apparent suicide, but he thinks she's been killed. So he gets together with ex-colleague of his, Yolanda, and together they go on this journey to discover what happened to his daughter, and also what's sort of happening in further fields of various sort of backstory that comes in through a Russian agent who he had dealings with 20, 30 years ago, who seems to be involved. And it's a spy thriller. You know, it's mostly set in the UK, and it sort of moves around from Bristol, where it's my hometown, and it talks about slavery, it talks about immigration, it talks about what his daughter was doing, which is she's a mixed race, dual heritage woman who was had been put into BNP organization to infiltrate them. So there's a lot of kind of difficulty about the loyalty in it. So Ron Eldon, the hero, follows the clues in a kind of detective way, and there's a shocking conclusion. And
yeah, don't spoil it.
I'm not going to tell you more. You know, you have to read it.
It sounds wonderful. I love spy thrillers and detective, stuff, and it just sounds like a wonderful, wonderful book. And it also sounds very different from the other one, the sci-fi one, because that is a space kind of. The name of the book is the name of a real asteroid.
Yeah. So there's an asteroid that's plummeting to Earth. It's a multi-strand book. So there's a woman in a space station they're going to dig the asteroid, and they mess up, and the asteroid splits into two, and one half of it comes towards the Earth. There's other stories. There's a guy who's. This is set in the future, obviously, and things have happened. Aliens have landed. One of the heroes, John, has superpowers. His hands are fire, and he can direct fire. And he teams up with this alien young woman, and they go on a journey. The other strand of the book is about a guy who sort of collects stuff in his van, but he's asked to go to the south coast and sort of collect these immigrants who are alien people, and he takes care of this little boy and then loses him, finds him again. There's various other sort of strands from the past and the future to androids, female androids that fall in love, and all of these stories come together towards trying to stop this asteroid hitting Earth and to try and save humanity. So it's an interesting book. I can tell you the genesis of it. I was a screenwriter for 10, 15 years. I was paid to write screenplays. None of them got made. Okay, so this is part of the strange business of being in the film industry, is that you work on stuff and nothing gets made. But so after the last kind of it's not getting made, where I was paid to write the script for a year, and then it went to the BFI, which is one of the funding bodies in the UK, and they didn't pick it up. I just thought, well, why don't I turn this into a novel? So I went back to the producers and said, do I have copyright on it? And they said yes. And so that's one of the stories. And I changed it to the future, and I took another script that I was writing, and that's how it came about. A few short stories. And I wrote this before COVID, 2019. I kind of started on this journey. I got the first draft down. It took a while. And then I got some help, an author I knew who writes YA books, and she was really gracious of reading it and giving me some notes. And I wrote it again and sent it out to publishers, and nobody wanted it. And it's a game, So then it was only a couple of years ago, I kind of looked at it again and said, look, just have a look at it. And I did a rewrite and kind of made it simpler and more structurally in a better place. And I sent it to Collective Ink, and they said within a couple of weeks, they said, yeah, we're going to publish it. So it was good. It's nice to get that kind of, it's not really recognition, but at least there's some forward movement, and that gave me the impetus to push the next book and then write a third book, which is the sequel to Jove.
I wouldn't say it's not recognition, because it is. They recognize that you have something that is, worthy. It's not the recognition that people in, the film industry would consider recognition, but it's your face isn't on every billboard and, side of buses. Do they do that in England where the sides of buses are just plastered with billboards?
Yeah, they do sides of buses. Yeah, sure. They've got all of that stuff, but I've never got into this game for fame. It's
no.
But on the other hand, I'm not an artist either. I just like writing stories.
Right.
And I want people to read them, and that's great. I was just talking to a guy a couple of hours ago. I haven't seen him for years, and I used to write with him screenplays, and he's got another screenplay out there. He's just. I told him about this, and he said, it's just great to have somebody to read it. Because with screenplays, they read it and they're like, I love it. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, I hate it. It's like, because it's a fickle business, dirty business built on money, and at least if when you write a book and somebody reads it and says, yeah, I really like this. That's more than anything, it's just nice to have your what you want to say, recognized and appreciated. Yeah, for sure.
Well, here's a question for you from a writing aspect, because I spent a good portion of my early writing years trying to do screenplays. Now, unlike you, I wasn't paid for them, but
okay.
It's a different monster from writing books. It's much more structured. You have your beats where, this has to happen on page 1, this has to happen on page 3, this, on your 90-page script. And then you start writing books, and sure, there's still, a beat process to follow, but it's far more lax. Did you find that an easier transition then because you were able to relax more, or were you a little stuck in the rigidity of the screenplays?
No, because I didn't get paid for the first 10 screenplays, and then I did get paid for the second 10. No, I think it's yes, to an extent that the rigidity is not there because you have more time, but the structure aspect of creating a screenplay helps when you're creating a book. I don't know, when I pick up a book and I'm bored in 30 pages, it just goes down. I'm not interested anymore. I need that I need a plot, and writing screenplays helps with that, because you have to have a plot. You have to have something happening on each page, really. So I took that into writing novels, and that's done me well. I'm not a kind of purple prose person. I kind of get to the meat of it and tell the story. Every chapter you might have a line you like, but that's about it. Kill your darlings and move on. And you have to just try and entertain, I think, in many ways. But you can do that with also talking about particular issues. Jove talks about the slave industry and it was an industry in Bristol. There's a whole section of it where the character kind of looks into that because of various plot things. And if you I didn't know that stuff until I read into it. And I grew up there. There's a way of doing both. There's a way of talking about issues and telling a great story.
There's definitely a way to do it, but you said if you're bored within 30 pages now, do you need the action, or is a slow burn okay as long as it's interesting?
Well, the Volunteer books are very kind of slow burn, but there's an exciting instant, somebody's dead, and then they try and work it out. It takes time, and in that time you kind of become close to the character, and you learn more about them, and then you identify with their struggle, which is, as you know, filmmaking is about, to try and find an answer. So there's a whodunit aspect, which is kind of a classic thing in a lot of stories, that we all want to know who the bad guy is, because as a society, we want to identify that bad guy and punish them. And I think that's been going on thousands of years. We collectively want to safeguard ourselves, against the bad guys in the world, or bad people. So I think in terms of film and writing novels, it's a similar process. I would say it's just I've never had a problem with writing screenplays and novels actually. Once I'm in it, it's feels, I dare to say this, easy. It just takes a long time for it to become easy. So this one I just finished. I spent the first 8 months writing the first 30,000 words, and then I spent a month writing the second 30,000 words. I think, and it took a year. And the reason it took a year is because and screenplays take a year.
Yeah.
It's because it's the thinking time. It's like, because I just tend to jump in, I don't actually structure it. I know the end and I kind of know something in the middle. But I go with the story. I mean, Stephen King does this as well, and Murakami does this and all that. It's just, it depends on the writer. I think you do it different ways. But I find it's more interesting if I don't know exactly what's going to happen, scene by scene. And I did that with screenplays as well, to be honest. The structure thing with screenplays is overrated, I would say. It's it's not necessary. You don't. The only reason you're doing it is to sell it to a producer who thinks, because they've read that same book, that's how it has to be. Just don't be boring. That's all. We've seen many films that don't follow that structure, and as long as they're not boring, they're interesting. They entertain. You can get there. I mean, something like La Strada or Fellini films, they don't really follow that structure. They follow the up and down, of the main character. I mean, Kurt Vonnegut speaks about this. I don't know if you've seen his lecture on it. It's all the same story. You just put a protagonist through something where they go up like Cinderella and then go fall down and then they come back up at the end. I mean, it's not that difficult. And I think you kind of do it naturally.
Well, I would say there is a bit of naturalness to it, but on the same note, it does take many years to become, as you say, easy, to become that natural kind of flow to it and stuff.
Most people don't want to put the work in; they're just lazy. That's the problem. And I was just having this chat with a friend of mine who's right in the middle of it. You get people that think they're geniuses and they just haven't done the work, and that difference between those two things causes sort of lots of problems because you're dealing with people that are sort of doubtful of themselves because they haven't put the work in, and that's I think what it takes. Whether or not my stuff is successful or not, that's just my opinion. And the work is about the work you're doing on yourself as well.
Oh God, yeah.
Because this is why we're creative, because we're all trying to get somewhere, as individuals. So we do this work in order to learn about life and about ourselves. So that's why it's necessary. It's not to become famous or brilliant or for people to love us. It's because we want to learn how to become better people.
Yes. And I think that if a writer or an author writes a novel or a book or a short story and doesn't come away having changed some perspective or learned some new perspective about something, then they're just kind of regurgitating a story that's been in their head and hasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably everybody does once they get into the thick of it. But I wouldn't put down other people for their process. But for me, that's why I do it.
Yes.
But look, it can be I think creativity is good for the soul. I think we're all born artists, everybody. Yes. And we all have a different creative approach. And it's good for us.
No question for you, because you've been writing a while, couple of years.
13.
And you said one of my favorite phrases, which is "kill your darlings."
Yeah, John Keats. Yeah.
because there are a lot of authors, especially newer authors, and newer writers who feel like every word of theirs is a precious baby that can't be, changed. How did you deal with that in the beginning? Because all authors in the beginning are like, my words are perfect and I'm perfect. And how did you?
Well, the writing screenplays really cures that very quickly, because you get notes, and you sit in meetings with somebody. I've sat in a meeting with my, script supervisor and a whole bunch of people, and he's like, I think this line here, I think, well, you've put beat, I think you should put mini beat. And I'm like, really? Could we talk about the story a little bit more, So there's a lot of people that come in, and you have to listen to these people because they're paying your wage, So, you become very adept at getting rid of stuff for other reasons and for yourself. And actually, that process is really helpful because maybe sometimes people don't have great advice, but they do often pinpoint a problem. So not the normal plot hole problem that every writer has, but just something, a tone, something that's not right. And they will know that it's not right. So you have to listen to them. They have good advice. There's no point in kind of thinking your thing is perfect, or not listening to advice, or not having people that can give you advice. It's all very dangerous. It's good sometimes, even if they're wrong, they're right, because they, and you just sometimes you're like, okay, well, they're an idiot, but maybe I should have a look at that bit again, because maybe that's not quite working, but maybe I can find the solution.
So sometimes people's inability to vocalize why something needs changed doesn't necessarily discredit.
They never know. There's so many notes you get in screenwriting where you're like, this bit, I don't know if it's, quite right, but I don't know what I like, but it's not right. So, yeah. It's good to listen to people. Everyone's got an opinion, but there is another side of it, which is that you should just do your own thing and, not listen to anyone. And that's good as well. You just need a balance,
The balance between listening to no one and listening to everyone.
Yeah. Here's an analogy. I just started doing some metal sculpture work the last, 3 months. And I know nothing about it. But it's a great place. I signed up to a course once a week, Saturday mornings. And it's in an old hall from the 1850s or something, an old missionary hall, actually. And Henry Moore helped set it up. He donated a piece of art and they set this thing up. And it's a metal sculpture place. So it's got MIG welders and TIG welders and all this kind of stuff that you can go and use. And I've been making stuff, but I know nothing about it. So I'm trying to learn how to do things. And I thought, instead of trying to make one piece, I'm going to make lots and lots of different pieces, and I'll learn the way to do it. And I'll use every piece of equipment. And that's what I've done. So I've learned stuff. And when you learn stuff, that's why you're there. It's about learning. And it's learning technique, but it's also learning what you want to do, and it's learning how you use this metal. There's two types of metal you can use. You can use rod bar, or you can use sheets of metal. That's it. What can you do with that? And it's the same with words or images or pictures or writing. You have words, you have the mental picture you create for the audience, the person who's reading it. What can you do with it? How can you use it? How can you test that? And I think that's what writers do. They play with scenes and images and words and pictures, and they try and find the best way of putting all that together to make a complete piece, which feels like another universe in many ways. Same with film. You create your own universe, and that's a very that takes some responsibility as well.
Well said. So with back to the books,
Yes.
reason we're here, and I actually would love to learn more about the metal sculpting. I wouldn't even know what to ask. I don't know anything about it's metal. That's all I know is it's metal. I don't know how to weld or anything like that. So I think
It's good, useful skill, you know, come the revolution.
yeah. Well, we're gonna have to either build armored fortresses or barricades or just new homes altogether.
I'm getting better with the MIG welding. I'm getting there. I'm going to make this. I don't have any more pieces here, but I've done this sculpture, which it's a public piece in a churchyard on an old monument, and this is the model for it, which is steel actually, and you tell your wishes and desires into this.
Oh, that's cool.
And it holds it, and then I'm going to take it to the Thames. I mean, this thing would be
a
meter big.
Huge. Okay.
Huge.
You
and I'm going to take it to the Thames and submerge it and let all these wishes out for people. I know it's crazy, but I just put in a proposal for it. It's going to be mad. Anyway, sorry, back to the books.
No, that's wonderful. I like learning about things and stuff. How, and you said you're taking that to the River Thames?
Thames, yeah. The Thames.
I can't pronounce stuff. I'm from Chicago. I can't say anything right.
There's a church called St. John's. They have a big churchyard there. It's in opposite Waterloo Station, where the big IMAX is, and it's right next to the Thames. So there's a shout went out to say, has anyone got any proposals? And there's 5 deconsecrated tombs, flat tombs, monuments in the front of the church. And they said, does anyone want to put a proposal and put stuff on there? So I put one in. I think it might go through, and then I've got to build it.
The big one.
And the idea is that people have their wishes and desires, their prayers, maybe, you know, what we want out of life, all that kind of stuff. And it's about voices, you know, it's quite important to me that people's voices are often neglected, you know, their inner voices, what they really want, what they truly want. And people do this in secret. They can only really talk to, I don't know, therapists or something. I've never done that, but I just thought there's an opportunity for people to speak. There's a hole inside here, you know, and it goes in. You speak your wishes, and it's like a place where you can hold them. And then I'm going to put it into the Thames and let it go on an outtide. And you know, inner wishes and desires are kind of part of writing, aren't they? You know?
I think definitely is. Yeah.
The writers and the audience, because what's great about writing, what's great about literature, is the fact that you're allowed to connect with people. You're allowed, when you read a book, you're like, somebody else thinks like me. You know, somebody else is going through or has been through or thinks in the same way as me, and I'm not alone.
No. And that's where you find your readers, is when they have something they can connect with.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, when they read a part of themselves in a book and they go, this, I understand what this character is going through. That's when you find your audience, and that's when you get people going, this is a must read. And
well, I'm not worried about that stuff, but yeah, no, you know, a conversation can be as good as a novel. You know, you can change a person in a night. Not that you want to do it, but you know, I remember I was in a bar in Santa Rosa, you know, in Northern California, and I was there doing this film for Sonoma Tourist Board, and it was called Sunshine. It's all about the efforts they do with sustainability in Northern California. I made a whole series of films about sustainability over 2 years. And climate change. It's very interesting. And I was sitting between 2 guys, and they weren't talking, but I just kind of sat in the middle. I was just on my own, as you always are on these things. One guy was an engineer, optical engineer, whatever that means. Another guy was an engineer from Tesla. And he had 8 homes, both American. And they were politically different, let's put it that way. And you know, I don't know if I brought them together, but we had a conversation, you know. And the guy from Tesla was a really cool guy. But, you know, he had some kind of viewpoints which I was surprised by, you know, about immigration and stuff. And, you know, by the end of the evening, put it this way, he was kind of hugging me in the parking lot and said, I haven't met anyone like you before, you know. I haven't had that viewpoint. You know, I haven't talked to anyone, you know. And
yeah,
often it's just about a conversation. You know, it's just about kind of seeing somebody else's point of view and seeing where they're coming from.
I think conversation has become almost a lost art because of, and I'm not blaming, but I kind of am blaming social media, where everything is done in 7-second snippets and 2-sentence memes and replies, that the ability to have a conversation, because everyone on social media, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, they're kind of just repeating the same phrases over and over again, and the conversation's not moving forward. You know, there's nothing moving the discussion of whatever is the topic at hand. It's just repeating itself. Whereas
it's binary. It's binary. Yeah. I did a job for a software company that were working on a piece of software for children. I interviewed the teachers that encouraged a more open way of talking about things. So it had a way of starting a discussion, and then people would join into that discussion from different places. There was actually a graph of it. You know, you could see where the discussion was going. And it was, I talked to the inventor of it, a guy in Paris, and that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to encourage a non-binary, not in a gender way, but in a opinion way, of looking at issues from lots of different points of view, but accepting or at least appreciating where people are coming from, you know, because everyone is you know, born or taught or by our upbringing a belief system, you know, and you know, some of life, I think, is about overcoming that belief system, to be freer, to accept other people's points of view and trying to find some kind of consensus that will take us forward.
I think no, it does make sense. And I think that you have a very your viewpoint and your outlook, I should say, on life and your desires to be who you want to be is very research scientist, in the sense of the guy who discovered penicillin. He was just doing his job. You know, he was just doing his job, studying molds and bacteria, goes away for the weekend, forgot he left something out, comes back and makes this great discovery. And it's the sense of, in order to achieve greatness, you have to settle for the mediocrity. He was just doing his job. There's nothing great about that. He's just doing his job, studying molds.
There's a plaque on the wall in Paddington, in the hospital. I go to that hospital quite a lot. It's just down the road from me. Sir Ian Fleming. There's a plaque on the wall in the office that he made that discovery. London's great for that, you know. You walk around a corner and there's like a plaque, handle lived here, you know. It's a crazy place.
I have never been to England. I've never been overseas. I've been to Canada and Mexico, which is very similar to the rest of the United States and very, you know, different.
Right, I love Canadians. They're like cool people.
Oh, Canadians are very cool people. When I was down in Mexico, everyone I met was super cool too. There was a bit of a language barrier, but I speak a bit of Spanish. They spoke a bit of English, so we made it work. But everyone was just super nice. I haven't been to Canada in many, many years, but I would love to go back. But I want to go to England. I want to go to Ireland and kind of travel some of Europe and stuff. I was told about, and I really wish I had written it down, a pub in London. So that's going to narrow it down. The Pit, I think it's called the Pit and the Pendulum.
Well, from the story,
I think there's a pub named after the story of the pit, or maybe it was just the pendulum or half of the title. But I hear so many good stories about London, and my only exposure to anything, you know, from overseas is like what you see in movies like Notting Hill or Midsummer Murders TV show, you know.
Yeah, it's not really like that, you know. It's a very kind of narrow view. Imagine you kind of only watched, you know, I don't know, Pretty Woman from, you know, and then that's what America's like, you know. London's a melting pot of, it's like New York, of people and opinion and you know, everything. And you know, we don't all go around in top hats and monocles and, you know,
no, I have done a bit
hell
of
up cabs, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like any other place. Everyone's the same. Let's be honest about this, you know.
Oh no, everyone is the same. And the more that I think people, you know, study history, especially if you study a certain aspect of history, like say I was a musician for a number of years. So like studying the music scene in London, especially the underground punk scene and stuff of, you know, the 70s and the 80s is a huge eye-opener to see not only where our trends came from, but also to see the similarities between, you know, both of, you know, everyone, and to know that, you know, it's not all top hat and monocle wearing. I would actually think I would be very shocked if I were to visit and to see even one person in a top hat and monocle nowadays, because it's so old, you know, such an old school.
The big difference, I suppose, it's not, there's a legacy here, you know, and there is a class system, and it's difficult, it's tricky, but you know, every country has the same kind of, you know, hierarchy and stuff. It's just, you know, there's a small percentage of people. There's 50 families in this country that own half the wealth, you know, and that's a problem. It has been for about 1,000 years, and that creates kind of turmoil in people that have never really acknowledged that, and that's why this populist kind of thing we've got at the moment, you know, and I know you have as well. A lot of countries have. You know, that's what people grab hold of when they're desperate about living standards not going up for 20 years, you know, and it's a you know, it's a throwback. That's all I can say. It's like the last dinosaurs are just dying, you know, of stuff that happened in 1930s Germany. You know, it's the same crap of people pointing at somebody else and saying it's their fault, because they just don't want to acknowledge their own part of a system that's built up for all that time, which they are part of. And you know, we'll see, but you know, things shift and move. We've got a lot of shifting in our sort of government at the moment, but you know, we need to support each other and accept each other. Of that story I told in the bar in Santa Rosa, what the guy said to me at one point was, the problem with immigrants is that they don't care about their families. And I said, do you think there's Americans that don't care about their families? And he took some time about it, and he said, let's talk. You know? And I was like, yeah, let's talk. Because I think, you know, there's lots of opinions, and they're false. You know, everybody cares about their family.
Everybody cares about their family, and there are always exceptions to a rule. You know what I'm saying? And,
sure. There's people out there that are vicious and horrible and hatred, and that was my point, you know?
Yeah.
You know, there's Americans that are, there's immigrants that are, and there's, you know, there's awful people everywhere. But generally, you know, people care about their family and they care about each other, you know?
Yes.
If we can move towards that's where we should be going. That's what my books are about. I'm going back.
Yeah, go back to the books, please.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to promote some kind of positivity, you know, and whether you're doing a spy thriller or a sci-fi or whatever, you know, I hate those kind of films that it's a tragedy. I mean, there's a point of tragedy in literature and Greek literature, Greek plays, and with Shakespeare. And the tragedy is to point out with Shakespeare and writing, it's to point out that if you go along a course, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna end up bad, and that was necessary for that society at that time. And Greek tragedy is actually worse in a way, is that you didn't do anything wrong, but fucking shit happens. It's like, Oedipus, it was an accident. He killed his father. He slept with his mother, but it's not his fault. But it's a terrible world, and he got punished for it. So there's no moral understanding or learning in that. These days, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think you have to kind of push for a positivity in outcome, in what you do. I mean, for sure, highlight problems, but, have a hero. I think we're in need for heroes.
I think the world has long needed a hero and someone that can be looked up to in a positive way. And people, there are associations with words, and sometimes the associations almost ruin a word. People like the word great, righteous. Great can be just a scale of things. It doesn't have to necessarily mean good or positive. Righteous, you had the word indignation next to it, and all of a sudden that righteous goes from a positive to a negative. But I think right now the world has some righteous leaders that need to really kind of be taken down a notch in terms of their ego, without saying anything that'll get us flagged.
For sure. I do want to come to America at some point in the future. It would be nice,
I would love to have you over here. I would not suggest now would be the right time.
I don't want to go in handcuffs, It's the 6 week. I mean, crikey, you're really isolating yourself over there. We need to reach out to each other, man, brother. We need to kind of, we're the same, and it's our legacy though. Britain's got some blame in the game there. We really messed up the world in many ways, and we're feeling the effects. There was the expansionists of British empires. It's you guys broke away, and good for you. But yeah,
you see how all that's working out.
Yeah. I know. God, I just, my hope is that, in 10 years, all of these people are long gone.
Well, I like that. Long gone. No connotation there that can be misconstrued.
No. Just easing into retirement of a permanent kind. And in a natural way. In a very natural way. And we can move on and find a new way of looking at the world, which is not based on, like you said, ego or money, and enrichment. We have to be. I mean, I'm a kind of social democrat, I guess you might say. So, I think, there's ways of taking care of people. When you create a society like we did a few thousand years ago, and we still continue to do, and we have a democracy which allows us to create a society continually. I think, part of that is taking care of people that can't take care of themselves. There's obviously a judgment call on that, but I think it's necessary. I think it really is.
That is absolutely perfectly said. We must all take care of ourselves. On that note,
okay,
you've given us a lot to think about and a lot to chew on.
Sorry,
and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I know you said that in your books, which are one's a spy thriller, one's your sci-fi space, kind of saga. You still have underlying messages of positivity and hope and everything like that. So where can everybody who's listening to this find you, buy your books so they can start reading this? I know Cove comes out June 30th, but where can we find 944
Yeah, they're on Amazon in every country. They're on Barnes and Noble. They're on, all the kind of sites, either with bookshops or you can go to Collective Inc., their website. You can go to my website, which is Jack Davis Author. So Davis is with a IES, Davies. I'm partly Welsh background, Irish, as I've said, and I mean they're there, they're coming out. So one came out last year, and the other one's on June the 30th. You can find them there. If you want to look me up on Instagram, I'm on Jack Writes with a Z instead of the S. You can join me there and look at my posts and stuff.
I have to make one clarification for American listeners. Said with the Z instead of a S, that's a Z for all the Americans listening right here.
Potato.
Yeah. I just know there's going to be some people.
There's only about five, isn't there?
I do apologize about you pronounced Davis and I said Davies, and I apologize about that.
Again, no. It works both ways. It's all good. Let's not get precious here. Come on.
I don't like, I like to pronounce things properly. I can't say, when I'm in casual conversation, I can't say this, that, or these. It's always, or what did my ma used to say? The Dems, D's, and Does, because my THs are very hard Chicago D's.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Chicago is kind of close to where I'm from, actually. Bristolian accent, which I've kind of lost over the years, is very similar. My nan, that's a grandmother, used to talk in D's and Thous, which is Anglo-Saxon.
I would love her. I would have loved your grandmother.
He's going down Bedminster. It's beach thing. It's a German thing. It's High German. It's that's where that accent comes from, and that's where my accent comes from. That's how I speak when I'm speaking Bristolian. It's very close.
So anyway, we've also talked about a lot about writing and writing, just our methods and your methods specifically. But if you had one piece of writing advice you could give to an aspiring writer, what would that be?
I just stick to it and don't listen to anyone.
You got the notes that they're going to give you. Don't listen.
Don't listen to anyone. Just do your own thing, because eventually you'll find yourself. The first 10 years, I'd say just don't listen to anyone, and the next 10 years, don't listen to anyone.
You heard it here, folks. Don't listen to anybody.
Stick with it. Give yourself 10 years. Give yourself 10 years of writing every day, or as much as you can do. We all live busy lives. And, don't worry about it, because if you want to do something, you want to say something, it will come out regardless. Enjoy it. It's a wonderful profession.
Enjoy the ride and be yourself. And
enjoy the roller coaster.
Well, I want to thank you, Jack Davies, for being here. Everybody, you heard it. Follow him. Go to check out his website, jackdavies.com. And follow him on Instagram with the Z at the end. And I'm going to start saying that. I'm going to bring English alphabet over to America. Bring it back. Yeah, I'm going to bring it back. I brought the high five back. I'm going to bring this back. I'm just kidding. I did not bring the high five back, but we should. It should be a thing again.
Gen Z.
But I want to thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And if everyone has had half as much fun listening as I've had doing it, well, they've had half as much fun. But I hope you all have enjoyed yourselves. Follow him, follow us along. And until next time, just remember, it costs nothing to be kind. So be kind. I'll see you then. Jack.
Thank you for listening to Drinking with Authors. Join us next time for another fun conversation with an author over drinks.